Welcome to the Shortwave Show. It's a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. So you got to look at my mug. That is the rules. I'm so happy that you have given me a few seconds, maybe a little bit more than seconds, a few minutes of your evening. And of course, you know this is going to be a good show because it always is. So do the right thing and do it now. Don't think you should be clicking the like and or the hate and or the love and or them. Click the comment and share and all the things required so I can break all the algorithms so that I can move forward here and let everyone see this amazing show that we got going on. And if you are watching on YouTube and you have not subscribed, do so now. Stop looking at me. Click. Do it now. And if you have done it, thank you. I appreciate it. It's important. I am very lucky today. I have with me somebody who is a kindred spirit. He ran for a governor of his state, as I did, as a third party, as I did, and sadly, as I did not win. But that's okay. That's fine. Still did it anyway. He is also an Emmy Award-winning anchor, host, documentarian, the man himself, Cory Hepola. How are you, sir?
Hi, Larry. Yeah, they're still tabulating the results. I didn't quite get to the finish line on this one. I just fell a little short.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe next time. Absolutely. But the reason why I was so interested in talking to you is because you've done a series called Rural by Choice. And that series really made me think, wait a minute, the timing is perfect, right? For those who have watched my show often, I've spoken often about many people who are wealthy in the city. I live in New York City, obviously the biggest city, right, in the country. And many of my people I work with, they're very wealthy. And wealthy people who live in big cities have more than one home, right? They have one in the city and then one someplace else. Jersey Shore, upstate New York, Florida, whatever. Someplace that's not New York City. And when the lockdowns hit, a lot of them packed up and went to those secondary homes. They went to more rural areas. Yeah. And they brought their business with them and their cash with them and their kids with them and everything. And I thought that's what Rural by Choice was. But it was something different. Yeah. It was more of a personal story. Can you tell me why you did Rural by Choice? It wasn't what I thought. It was something different.
Yeah, well, first off, Larry, it's so good to finally catch up with you on your show. I mean, we've gone back and forth now for months, so I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me and shining a light on Rural by Choice as well. Yeah, so interesting story. You came to the docuseries for one purpose, looking yes. Like, oh, you guys did this because of this. That's just kind of what happened when we started rolling. Like, right. The precipice of this story started before COVID hit. This was something that we were discussing back in 2019 about, I grew up in about as far away from New York City as you can, in rural Minnesota, Otter Tail County, in a small town called Perm, about 3,000 people. And so I had never been to New York City until my mid-20s.
Sure.
Fargo was the big city to us.
That's the big city. Okay.
It was an hour west. And that's where we went to the mall. That's where, we'd do school shopping. It was the big Saturday thing. You'd go to the mall and you'd go to Fargo and West Acres. And so that for us was the big city. If you really wanted to get into it, you'd go to Minneapolis, St. Paul, but that was 3.5 hours for us.
Got it. Got it.
And me at 18 years old, thinking about different colleges, Minneapolis, St. Paul seemed way too big. It was just way too big, like let alone New York City or Boston or Houston or DC, anything like that. But even something as familiar as Minneapolis, St. Paul seemed enormous. So
sure.
Like I, grew up a Gopher fan and I was like, well, campus seems too big for me. So that's,
but hold on. But there's a point here that I want to bring up here. I mean, this whole series really is about you growing up there, but not really experiencing it, almost taking the rural lifestyle kind of for granted, right? Like just not like, yeah, I grew up here, but whatevs. Not like enjoying it as in the series, you clearly enjoy it. Like you're almost like rediscovering it.
Yes, and that's a great point. I think that growing up in the small town that I did, I loved it. I really did. Mm-hmm. But then as I got kicked out, I say that because my broadcast journalism career took me to Fargo, Montana, New York.
Oh, sure.
I was in upstate New York in a couple different cities, Texas, and then back to Minneapolis.
And you mentioned you met your wife in upstate New York, right?
Yeah, in Elmira. She was at the
go.
NBC station. I was at the ABC. I saw her pop up anchor in the noon news. I'm like, I would really like to meet her someday. And it was small enough where we were able to connect and do that. And then Rochester, New York, and then Texas, and then back home. But it wasn't until I got into my 20s and 30s and, and then into 40 where I recognized, wait, I always tell people I love where I grew up. Look at all these different things. Yet I didn't experience all of those things. I did take those things for granted. And I was in kind of a hurry to leave. And for no reason. It's not like there are a lot of people that say, well, I just can't wait to get out of here. I wasn't like that. I really wasn't. Like I call Ottertail County my forever home because it is. It's where we go to vacation. Now we're just 3 hours away. We go all the time, and I'm still close with so many different people there. But it's more of as you mentioned, a rediscovery because I recognized I was saying these things, but now as an adult at 40 with a wife and 3 kids, what did I really know about the place that I grew up? And I had blinders on because I was so focused in on, all right, I'll do high school, I'll go to college, and then I'll start my broadcast journalism career. And then I'm off that I didn't do ice fishing or snowmobiling or skiing or, any of those things.
Well, let me bring this up because you're not alone in this, right? A lot of people, my family, and I think because my mother was an immigrant, we didn't have this issue, but many people who live in New York City don't go to the Statue of Liberty. Like, they don't go to the Empire State Building. They've never been to a Broadway play. And I'm like, these are the amazing things of New York City. Why would you not go to a Broadway play if you live in New York City? Why would you not go to the Statue of Liberty if you live in New York City? People travel hours and thousands of miles to go to walk on Wall Street, right? All these types of things. And a lot of people in New York City, if you go there, will go, yeah, I lived here 25 years. Oh, really? When's the last time you went to Empire State Building? Never. Yeah. Now, my mom was an immigrant, so I did all those things when I was a kid. But I would bet that if that wasn't the case, I probably wouldn't have.
Well, see, you bring up a great point because I think the overall theme now for season 2, which the first episode just dropped on Sunday, we've got 4 more to go. So we're going to take you every Sunday night through Christmas. But the overall theme outside of everything, okay, we're exploring rural Minnesota through my eyes. We're going back. We tackle a lot of different issues, but the overall writing theme, Larry, is right what you're talking about is being present. We are not present. We are living in this nostalgic of the past that doesn't exist. We pick and choose. The good old days. Look, there were no good old days. We lived, or we're thinking about the future and worrying about things that won't happen. Yet this is what we have. And right now, this moment, me and you enjoying this time together, this is where if we can be present and be in the moment, that's living. And if rural living is the spot you want to do that and raise your family and have a great job and access to excellent schools and healthcare, it's there for you. And guess what? On a Tuesday night, you can finish your job and you're done at 5. You can leave the job where it is and you can go ice fishing in December and January.
Well, you bring that up, right? The idea that, I remember when I was a kid out of the Bronx, is where I grew up as a little kid in the Bronx. And we would travel on vacation, kind of, to upstate New York. Like going to Niagara Falls was a big deal for me as a kid, right? Literally in the 70s, we had the yellow, station wagon with the wood side. We had that. Exactly what you're thinking. That's what we had.
You're the Griswolds.
So, that's correct. Yes, we literally were that. Yes. And we go to Bear Mountain, which is closer to New York City, or we head to the Finger Lakes, right? We do the things in New York that many people would do. But as you mentioned in the series, people who live there, it's like they don't have to go on vacation, right? They can just, again, go ice fishing. For someone like me, a Bronx kid, to go fishing was a big deal. You can't go fishing outside of Yankee Stadium. That doesn't work, right? You can't do that. But so I'd have to go someplace to go fishing. I have to go someplace to see more than like 1 or 2 trees. Like I'd have to go someplace to do that. But you mentioned, in the series that a lot of people, they just do it. Like you said, Tuesday, let's go fishing. It's a different issue.
I don't want to, this is not this life is better or that life is better. This is just what we wanted to do with this docuseries is break down those popular misconceptions that people may have. Or even just educate people on, because I think that, and Larry, we've both been in politics, and there is this divide, and there's this teaming divide, And then there's this, well, they like this and they see this and we see this and we see that. But what we wanted to do here is go, no, look, like actually we're all humans and we all,
right.
And I find that here, and I can't speak for New York, but here it's driven by politics more so than people.
Sure.
And I feel that. And having this experience as somebody who's grown up living in the rural area and still being close there, but now living metro, having a biracial family, we are able to have a lot of these different conversations. And I think that's what has made this very unique is that we're able to then go back and have experienced a lot of different things and say, look, this has kind of been thrown on you. It's this narrative. It doesn't actually exist.
Well, the funny part is, right, I think it's almost like team sports, right? It's if I'm in the rural area, that means I'm part of the red team. If I'm in the urban area, that means I'm part of the blue team. Even though your thought process might be either or neither, right? It could be either or neither, but oh no, I'm in the city, so therefore I'm on the blue team. Or I'm out in the rural, so I'm on the red team. And I feel like that's been one of our issues. And obviously running third party makes it even harder because people fall back into their team. I like you. I really like you, Cory, but I got to make sure the red guy wins. Or I like you, Cory, but I got to make sure the blue guy wins. Or worse, I got to make sure the red or blue guy doesn't win.
That's the overriding. That's to me. That's more what I heard was.
Yep.
People were like, and that's why I'm a big proponent of ranked choice voting, because everyone's like, look, you are my favorite choice, but look, money in politics is insane, and we just don't want the other person to win. So Correct. My vote's going to go here because it's a tough lift for you. And so we went through the process, we understand, but I'm here this docuseries serves as a uniting force because people who live in the city, whether it's New York City or Minneapolis or St. Paul, anywhere, we get feedback from all over the country, and people say, wow, I didn't know it was like that. I didn't know you could do that. And that's what we want to do with that, is just educate. And it's not this is better or this is better. But if you are looking for work-life balance, if you are looking for great schools and you're looking for excellent healthcare, and there may just be a place for you if that's something that you want in a slower.
Well, there's a piece though that I want to bring up, and this is more of a social aspect here, right? I have a similar situation. I travel across New York State every year. I go to every single county, and most counties by number are rural compared to urban, right? By obviously population, there's far more population than is in New York City, that more bodies. But I think I go all over New York State, and what I do is what you just said. I don't say my lifestyle is better or worse. I say my lifestyle is a different lifestyle. That's what it is, right? That where I live, and this is true story. You can cross the street. Across the street is my dentist, my computer repair shop, my accountant, and my deli. They're all across the street. If I have a dentist appointment for 2:00, I leave my house at 1:55 and I walk across the street. So that's a lifestyle, right? I don't have anything that in my house. I walk across the street to the deli, get what I want, right? So, but I also live on top of people all over the place, right? Everywhere. I live in New York City with 40,000 cops in my city. That's how big the city is, right? My borough has over 2 million people just in my borough, right? So, I mean, it's massive. That's just my county. So it's massive. But I still travel to counties in New York State that have 4,000 people in them. And it's not that mine is better or worse. It's just different. And if you enjoy it, you do you. I think that's the important piece that we've kind of lost, which is why I know why you have to say it. Because people are assuming that, oh, you're a city guy, therefore you're saying city life is better. Or, oh, you're a rural guy, therefore you're saying rural life is better. But let me touch one piece that maybe you have or haven't gotten. I hope I didn't talk too much here. I apologize. But isn't there an automatic negative image of the other? Right? Doesn't the person in the rural area go, oh, stupid, rude, city folk who are mean and nasty? And doesn't the city folk go, oh, you people out in the farms, you're not savvy and sophisticated like we are? Isn't that a normal thing?
It is, at least from a misconception. It is a thing. I think that there's a lot of this coming from rural where people point to the cities and say elitist, right?
Sure.
Elitist. And then you have people in the city say, well, look at, Hicks or the Sticks or something like that. But at the core, and what we want to do with this docuseries is just explore that. And to your point, too, you traveled all over New York State. So same thing in Minnesota. I've always done that. And then with the campaign, but also this docuseries. And I find that being curious and asking questions about people and why they live there or what they like most about their community or what's best, you learn and gather so much. And we did this in season 1. So there were 7 episodes in season 1. And I talked with one guy named Eric and asked him, because he's taking me out fishing, right? And he's 40 something. He's got a long beard and he's got a hat on and he's got jean shorts that are cut off. And I just asked him.
I remember you were wearing camis.
Yeah, I was wearing camouflage pants. I thought
I remember.
I didn't know if I'd be disguised from the fish. And so I asked Eric, I'm like, so does it bother you? Like, do you feel it? Do you like, what if somebody were to have this opinion of you? Like, what would you say? And he said something that I thought that has really stuck with me. He said, well, I would feel bad for that person because I'm happy. Like, I'm living in the moment. And I would hope that if you thought this about this lifestyle, I would hope you'd just come explore it, because it might be something that maybe you don't want to move there, but you might enjoy, or you might learn something. And that's kind of what we want to do. We want to create curiosity and then help educate people too.
It's funny. I remember when you talk about the farmer, right? And you're jumping on the farmer's on the farmer's tractor.
Yeah.
When you jump on the farmer's tractor, there's actually self-driving technology on the tractor.
Yeah.
Right. So the image of someone in the city is like, oh, there's some guy, driving his tractor around or whatever, right? Like every farmer is the Amish or something, right? That's the image, right? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, there's some technology in this. And what it reminded me of, believe it or not, is going to sound crazy, but as I've spent time with farmers in New York State, I've always said they're actually not farmers. They're actually entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So they actually are. And it reminds me actually of, believe it or not, bodega owners in the Bronx or storefront owners in the Bronx, deli owners who are often immigrants, but not always, but often immigrants. They come in and they have to find ways to sell stuff. They just have to find ways to do stuff. And I feel like the farmer has to find a way to do something, right? And the farmer is fighting against the big, conglomerate farm, and the store owner is fighting against the big box or something like that. I felt actually a kindred spirit between those two.
Well, yeah. So that was, I think it was the 2nd episode. One thing that I don't think made the final cut, but I asked him, I'm like, so wait, you have GPS and this does it for you, but you have to sit in here. And I'm like, what are you doing the whole time? He's like, dude, I'm catching up on my podcasts. So he's just listening to podcasts in the tractor. Yes. But to your point, yes, I mean, in this industry, the agricultural industry is so important here in Minnesota. I know it is in New York too, but so important here to the state of Minnesota. And it's obviously, we talked about it in that episode, but it has changed so drastically. It is really difficult for the small time farmer, where when my mom grew up on a farm, it was her 2 sisters and brother, and then her mom and dad, and they just had a plot of land, and it was hard work, right? Like, I mean, they're milking cows before and after school. And then here it's winter, and in rural Minnesota where we're from, it's north. And so, I mean, it's freezing cold and they're out there. Sure. It's hard work and the margins are slim. And now you think about farming here, that you just don't see that much of those family farms as much. It still happens, just not as much because the margins are so slim.
Absolutely. I hear that. But there's another piece that's almost sad in a way. And you brought it up, and I think most people would agree with this. It's the concept of work ethic, right? That the idea, and I see it, right? I've taught at some colleges here in New York City, Columbia, and Baruch. And I've also seen farm workers, right? And there is definitely a difference in work ethic. Does that mean that the average city educated kid doesn't work hard? It doesn't mean that at all. but it does mean that there's just different expectation. The expectation that I see, and this is from my opinion, I think most people would agree with me. If you're going to an elite school, a Columbia or a Yale or something like that, you kind of expect to kind of get your ticket punched, then go to a job, which is going to have some long hours here or there, but you're going to make a whole lot of money. Your multiplier is massive, right? But when you're working on a farm, which I would even go even to a small business, very often the multiplier is not huge. It's work for something. Work, get nothing because the crop fails. Work, get something. It's a different kind of work ethic, which in my mind tends to make me feel like you build more resilience in that environment. Am I wrong with this?
Well, I want to take it this way then. So I think that you bring up a great point. But where I want to go with it is this: so you talk about being educated at Columbia and then working those long hours, or farming and working those long hours. But I would challenge people to say, does money drive success? Does money drive significance? Does money equate happiness? And I don't have the answer, but that's where I'm at 41 right now. Is that my whole life? When I was 8 years old, I started writing goals on my wall. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist in the Twin Cities. I was very, very driven by I want to find truth and I want to succeed and I want to do this. And it did not matter what got in my way. And I had that farming work ethic in my DNA. Now, my parents would argue I avoided all manual labor my entire life, which is very true, very accurate. But I had
But hold on, but you talk about your basketball experience, right? Yeah. Of actually getting cut in the 8th grade.
Yes.
But then coming back from that, which had to be a terrible failure to you, right? You had to feel like, oh my God, what happened? I failed. Oh my God, I'm terrible at this. But then by the time your senior year, you're like MVP, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. That was the major changing point in my life, was that in 8th grade, I got cut from the basketball team, was embarrassed, upset, and said that will never happen again. And I just got to work everything that the coaches asked, everything that they, and I went above and beyond and went for it. Right. I went all out for it. And so that's where and then the same thing, once basketball ended, it was like, let's pour that into broadcast journalism. So it was very, very focused. But as I went along, and my life really changed about 5 years ago when I met somebody who became a great mentor towards me, somebody who was a high-level CEO. And I asked this person, did you set a goal to be the CEO of a company? Was that it? Because these people kind of go through this path and they get picked and chosen, and then you're on a path and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. And he told me something very interesting. And this is a spiritual person. I myself am too. But he said, no, I didn't. But what I did is I just kept preparing. And what I found is that I was learning. And he goes, lots of times I took a job that was, maybe not a step up. Maybe it was a job that was pretty comparable to what I was doing, but I remained curious. I just always wanted to learn more. And what I found is that I was being prepared for this position. And then when it became open, I was the logical person to lead that organization. And so that really changed my life, because I was like, if I'm looking for significance and happiness, success will follow. But if I put success first, then perhaps I'm going to be driven by the wrong ideals, if that makes sense.
I see. Oh, I like that. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping if I could. Guys, if you like what we're saying, like, comment, and share. It does matter. Make sure you're doing that. I know you're watching going, man, these guys are cool. We are. That's true. Then let others share. Don't be greedy. Let others share. They can also see it too. If you like what we're doing, then support my sponsor, theadvocates.org. Have them take the world's smallest political quiz. You know that it matters to me. Why? It's free. Take it. Takes like 2 minutes. You take the world's smallest political quiz. You get your results and you share them online. What happens? More people go there. It's simple. People talk about issues that matter to them. You have the conversations required to change people's minds. It does matter. Please, if you've done it before, just do it again. It's free. If you go, Larry, I don't got time for you. Great. Then give me money directly then. Wise guy, you got time for me? Throw me $10 a month on Patreon. Patreon.com/Sharpway. Throw me $10 a month because you don't have time, Mr. Tough Guy. Great. Or just go take the test. It's free. Either one. But to either one of them, it does matter. Please, it really matters tremendously to us. And of course, if you like what Cory's talking about, check him out at his website, CoryHepola.com, or follow him on Twitter at Cory Hepola. So either one of those will help, so you can check out what he's doing. I want to grab a couple of comments if I can, Cory. People are commenting. I want to grab a couple if I could. Let's see here. Will brings up a point. An hour commute, half the rent. And I think some of that's true, particularly in New York City, Long Island, or upstate. You can maybe go an hour and a half for a commute and then an hour and a half back, like 3 hours. And it's maybe a third the rent. But that's the issue. So you brought that up, right?
Yeah, and not only that, too. I mean, we did in one of the episodes, a couple of my buddies have moved back to where we grew up and said, we have access to everything we want. Like when we want to go to concerts or games or do, museums or things like that, we can do that. There's also that stuff in Otter Tail County. But we never get stuck in traffic. We don't have to deal with that. Like we live 5 minutes. We live 5 minutes from work, and then we're done. And so and to Will's comment there, not only the money part of it, but how many hours are you then stuck in that commute where you're not with your family or a loved one or a friend or doing something that you want to be doing?
Absolutely. Shelley brings up, I raised my kids rural intentionally. Through college, they love being away, but now the first thing they do are muddying, hiking, swimming in creeks, and all the things country. It's funny that when I left, I left the city when I was like 12 or 13 as a teenager. I went to Long Island, Suffolk County, which is far more rural than New York City. And then I left the country for a while when I joined the Marine Corps. And when I came back, I remembered the smell.
Yeah.
I remember the smell of Suffolk County. And then when I came into the city again, I remember the smell of the city. Like the smell, it was almost like a primitive part of me, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense, because when we moved back home in 2015, in April 2015, now I had remained visiting and we'd go home all the time in the summer or in the winter. Mm-hmm. But we moved home April 2015. And I remember leaving I was working at KARE 11, the NBC affiliate in the morning show. I was anchoring the morning show at that point. And I remember getting up and leaving the house at 2:30 in the morning. And it was a beautiful spring morning. And there were like crickets out. Like here, and we live in the suburbs here. But there were like crickets out. And there was like the sounds and the smell. I'm like, I haven't, it's something I didn't think about, but I had not heard in 13 years. So it instantly brings you back. I will say, and I didn't tell you this, Larry, but so growing up where I grew up, I interned at the NBC affiliate in Washington, D.C. when I was 21. So that was kind of my first experience out east, where it wasn't just a quick trip or anything like that. So I was there for a number of months. And I remember just being it was just so different. And not only the city, but the way people interacted. And that's when I first started to be able to kind of, and I consider myself maybe a communications expert, because I'm really always diagnosing, human interaction and what it means. But that's where I was able to go, oh, wow. People out here, way more direct. And at first it was like, did I say something? Did I do something? When in actuality, no, people are more direct. But then also it told me, people in Minnesota, we don't really always say what we actually really mean. It's just passive aggressiveness of, no, if you think that's fine, that's cool, and we do that. And so that was kind of my first foray. And so when I moved to upstate New York, which is still New York, I was at least prepared some.
Yes. And I think the issue is, generally speaking, and this is a little bit, I'm geeking out a little bit, but generally speaking, the more transient the community is, the less contextual the language is, the speech is, right? Because if we've all lived together out in the same area, we kind of know what we mean. But when everyone's going back and forth, we don't. So being direct is the only way of doing it. Yeah. And then many people are speaking a second or third language, so they don't know the nuance.
Can I bring
they only know the straight?
Can I bring up one other point too on that comment?
Please.
So talked about raising kids intentionally in a rural area. So I'm really thankful for my upbringing. I was able to do 3 sports, be in student council, National Honor Society, get all of those experiences. But I give a great credit to my parents too, because lots of times you can just grow up in this bubble. And I did. And I say it in season 1. I mean, look, we're from a town and a county, 98% white. Really the biggest question was, are you Lutheran or Catholic? Right. You know, I mean, that was really it. But my parents at a young age where I was impressionable, introduced me to film, and film took me outside and showed me the much larger world. And I remember particular films that showed me different experiences, different cultures, and all of those things stuck with me and shaped my life. And so, you know, wherever you're from, whether, I hope that parents and people who are watching too, but remain curious. Like, we may have this thought about where people are from or how they interact or a different culture or sexuality, whatever. But just be curious, learn about it, educate yourself. Like, you will then all of a sudden learn more and feel better. And that was so important. So if you are doing that, raising kids in a rural area, make sure to expose them to all these other things too.
Well, I would go actually almost an opposite way, kind of more towards what Shelly was saying. On top of this, Shelly was saying also, which is also let them kind of unplug, right? So, when I go upstate New York, I would always complain, can't get any damn service. I can't call people, blah, 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 right? But that's because I'm campaigning and I want to be on the phone with donors, or I'm going to be on the phone with people trying to set something up on my team or something, right? So I'd always be upset. But there's also a good thing to where I just put the phone down and talk to the people in the car who are with me, right? And share time in the car with people who are with me that I probably wouldn't have done if I was able to be on the phone and call somebody else. So I think that one of the advantages of being in the rural area is being able to unplug. And my kids rarely get to do that. And so I've tried to be a bit more forward in that. But the sad part is I'm as guilty as them, right? I wish I'm as guilty as them. I'm plugged in all the time too. So I've got to physically try to unplug my brain so I can unplug their brain. And it's much more challenging in the city where you can get everything all the time.
Yeah. Well, in episode 1 of season 2, we explore that very, very theme. The family that we're with, Betsy and Nick Roeder, we go to a cabin in the woods, and it's in a blizzard. And so it's like a snow globe type of atmosphere. We got really lucky during the shoot. And we sat down and I joked with her that, look, you gave me these directions, but they don't go in the GPS. I didn't know where I was going. And I kind of had to do it the old fashioned way. And she laughed and she said, they're thinking about putting a cell tower up a few miles down because they don't get service there. And she's like, I said, well, do you even want that? And she's like, no, because this is our like our kids, they're getting a little bit older. They're like 7th, 9th grade. And she's like, we want them to unplug. This is our time to be together away from that stuff.
So the question becomes, I've always said that since 2008, in most areas, across America, there's been no real recovery outside of cities. It's been a very light recovery. Your parents were able to live and work in rural areas. And in New York State, years ago, decades ago, it was the place you went to go be somebody. Now you leave New York State to be somebody. There's really no recovery. So in most smaller towns, there's only one thing. There's the prison or the university or the Walmart or the one thing, and you work for that. Or you work for some, franchise like McDonald's or the maid service or something like that. Or you struggle, or you're on public assistance in some way. And that's a common problem throughout most of rural areas. And I feel this has made both a good and a bad thing for people leaving the cities, right? If you're leaving the city, great, I get to leave the city. There could be a renaissance in rural areas, right? As these bankers who literally have millions upon millions of dollars are leaving, these permanent these professional managers are showing up in these towns where they sold their place in the city for $5 million, and they can go to a town and buy 3 homes easily with tons of money in the bank and maybe a business or whatever they want to with that kind of money. It's massive in those areas. Is this a renaissance or is this a wrecking ball?
Well, we've got more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County alone. Just in Otter Tail County, we got more than 1,000 lakes. So if you're looking for a lake home, and there's secluded, amazing lakeshore property out here. It was not intentional. It happened. I don't even know if I finished the story, but we started to conceptualize this idea, and really back in 2019, the idea behind it was Otter Tail County came to me and said, we want to do tourism videos, but we don't want to do tourism videos because no one will watch it.
Right.
And they're like, do you have an idea? And we started to kind of go back and forth on some ideas. And then COVID hit, March 2020. And we were talking about a documentary, a long form documentary. And plans were off. We thought it's over. We're not going to be able to do it. And then in July 2020, our executive producer, Eric Osberg, came to me and said, hey, it's back on. We can do it. What were some of the ideas that you had? And that's where I laid out, look, we need to do some innovative storytelling here. Because there is a story here. If you look around and you see these misconceptions about rural living, I said, here's what I'm dealing with personally right now. I'm turning 40. I have a wife and 3 young kids, and we are talking all the time about, are we raising our kids in the right area? Yes, it's safe.
Sure.
It's great schools, all of those things. But life changes when you have kids. All of a sudden, you're not the most important person in your life. And so we're weighing these. And then I started looking back at my home, which I've always said I loved, yet they were always talking to me about, hey, well, Otter Tail County was, what about ice fishing or fishing? What if we did that with you? I'm like, well, I don't do those things. So then I was like, well, that's the story, isn't it?
That's perfect. That's exactly it. Yes.
I didn't do those things. Let's go back. Let's do it and be totally transparent and say, I love where I grew up, but I didn't know anything about it. And so let's go explore the wonderful, beautiful things that make up this great county. And so that's basically where it spawned from. But to answer the point,
but let me go to that point then. Are the people who live in your county, are they worried that, okay, all the people from the big cities are going to move here now? They're going to buy up a bunch of land, and they're going to buy up big houses, and they're going to bring all their big city energy into our county, and they're going to wreck it. Is that a worry? And what I'm saying is there are counties I know that are worried about that. Like, you know what, city folk, you can visit, but then you need to go, right? Is that a worry?
It's kind of like the Yellowstone narrative, right? I worked in Montana, and they were, people from California would buy up, rental homes or, homes there and second homes and be like, hey, you can stay away. Like, we're good here.
Right.
To your point, the work from home dynamic was not something we set out to do initially. But it clearly was an issue that we talked about in season 1 and again in season 2, because that has changed rural living. Now, you can work at Target headquarters here in the Twin Cities, and you can work from your porch looking over the lake in Otter Tail County. You can do that now. I can't speak for everybody, but I hope that the communities in rural, America, understand that, look, it takes great people and great leaders to make a great community. If you're not going, you're going in the wrong direction. And one thing that has made Otter Tail County successful, in my hometown of Perham, a successful, small, thriving community, is that the leadership in that town, whether it's the schools, the business owners, the healthcare leaders, they all understand it's like gears, right? It's not silos, it's gears. Our success depends on your success and your success and your success. So what we need to do then is to find solutions together. And that's where this spawned from. This spawning.
But you brought up in one of your last ones, it was the idea of diversity.
Yeah.
And how there was I don't remember, it was some type of, was it a food processing plant that was in the town, if I remember right?
Yep.
And it brought a bunch of immigrants to work there, right? A lot of immigrants came there, and it diversified the town because of, again, the one big thing, the factory or the school or the whatever, right? Brought people in. So does that then, I feel like in the episode, it enhanced and spiced everything up. Literally, some of the food you ate was spicy food. Yeah. So it literally enhanced and spiced things up. Is there a worry that there is an influence, but not from immigrants, but again, from city folk that come out and make it no longer a a small town, right? Many immigrants come from small towns too. So if an immigrant community comes in, they often retain the small town idea because they're from small towns, wherever they came from. But I'm not talking about immigrant population. I'm talking about almost a difference in style or maybe even class. That coming in. Is there a worry that now these city folk come in and now it's not going to be John's, local, diner. It's going to have to be now the fancy, Italian restaurant now. And that's going to ruin, our town. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I have heard people be concerned about this. And I think if you're obviously people are going to hear about your county, so people are going to want to come. Is there a concern?
Not that I've heard, but I can't speak for everybody. But that's not something that I've heard a lot about. I think that
good.
I think that and I would caution people to be scared of the unknown. When you look at the changing dynamics and demographics of not only Minnesota but this country, we need people we need people here in Minnesota. I mean, we just do. Like our demographic.
We got you beat on that. New York is losing more population than anybody in the entire country. So that one we got you beat on. But yes, we all need people.
We're runner up. And so, and what people, that's where all the that's where all the help wanted signs come from.
Yes,
that's where,
absolutely,
we need people. And that's something that was really the precipice of why I ran for governor of Minnesota was, look, we need to take a more proactive approach on this. Because we have been sitting back and being reactionary in every single thing that we do. All of it. Like everything's reaction. Oh, this happens. Okay, well, here's a Band-Aid to fix it.
Right.
In Minnesota, we have $9 billion right now, because of mismanaged. But anyway, it's fine. We've overtaxed people and we have $9 billion to work with. Now's the opportunity. Reinvest in yourself, recruit and retain, be an open door for immigration and make sure that you are recruiting and retaining your young talent. Tell people how great it is to live here. And look, Minnesota is not going to look like it did in 1920, nor should it. It shouldn't.
Right.
We should be welcoming all people to this great land because there is no place better for work-life balance than right here.
There we go. I love it. Guys, if you like what we're talking about, then like, comment, and share. It does matter. And as always, support the show by taking the world's smallest political quiz. I got to pump it every once in a while so you guys do it. Otherwise, you ignore me, then I get mad at you. I don't be mad at you. I want you to love you guys. So do what I'm asking you. Go ahead and take that small political quiz. It's a couple minutes. Share it. It does matter. And if you like what Cory's talking about, head over to CoryHepola.com or follow him on Twitter. Either of those to make sure you're keeping up to what he's going on. And you can watch it. Look, I watched the whole thing, right? Obviously, I watched it. You guys should watch it. It's interesting. A lot of my audience, by the way, is obviously New Yorkers. Not all, it's across the country, but a lot of it's New Yorkers, and they're going to understand a lot about it. There are a lot of similarities in what was going on. I saw it completely. So let me grab a couple more of these comments if I could.
Yep.
Let's see here. Oh, Otter Tail, Lakes County says, thanks for talking about this, Larry and Cory. Can't thank Cory enough for all of his hard work on this project. There we go. They're watching.
I'm so thankful. And I will say this too, Larry, and I appreciate you popping that one up because it's the great leadership at Otter Tail County. This was an outside the box project. It was an outside the box, really, ideal that we put together. And for that, most organizations would have said, no, it's never been done. But that's why it's working, because it has never been done. And we are getting people from all across the country that are now putting their eyes on Otter Tail County and saying, like, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And that's just amazing. So a credit to the forward-thinking leadership at Otter Tail County.
There we go. And by the way, that is the YouTube page. For those of you who want to go to the actual YouTube page, you can go there if you want to. It's the Otter Tail Lakes County. And there's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a separate playlist.
Yes.
You can go there also, right? So if you want to check it there, you can do it there. Or just follow Cory and he'll take you there anyway. But if you want to go here, this was another way of watching it if you like. Rhonda asked a very important question. She says, I'm wondering how much of a choice some of these people make. And I think it's a valid, question. Obviously, you had the drive and the parents that you chose to pack up and leave and come back. Some of your friends in the series left and came back. Is there an issue with people who aren't able to leave but would like to leave? Is that a thing?
I'm sure there is, Larry. I'm sure. And Rhonda, that's a great question. I appreciate you bringing it up. You know, Larry, Malcolm Gladwell writes about this too. Circumstantial, right? Like
Yes.
there's so much from our success or not even success, but where we're at through circumstance. And, you know, I won the lottery. I had the two best parents in the world, right? Who were selfless and giving and said, you can do anything. Doesn't matter where you're from. You can go and achieve, and we will support you. And I'm forever grateful for that. That was the circumstance that I had. Of course, not everybody has that. They have,
right.
You know, if you don't have that parental structure, it becomes much more difficult. Not impossible, but right. Much more difficult. And so,
well, you brought it up in the series. There's I don't remember the details, but there's a woman who actually is an astronaut who comes from a small town. Is that right?
Yeah, Karen Nyberg.
So yeah, there we go.
A town of under 100 people. And she was like one of the only women ever in space, certainly one of the first and one of the only women ever in space. And so she's got, like, from the Hubble telescope and stuff like that, shots of Otter Tail County from up in space. It's incredible. And that's the point too, is like, whether you're in the Bronx or whether you're in Otter Tail County, you can. Like, and I hope people get that from this. Like, you can be who you want to be. You can do what you want to do. Like, it's, you know, it's all dependent on ourselves and surrounding ourselves with good people.
There we go.
To
I like that. Missy
want to go.
says, I grew up on an old farm. I was so excited to leave, but now I like to go back often. Hiking, walks, standing barefoot in the yard, no noise. I'm thankful for it now. There we go. There we go.
Missy, so yeah, I'm 3 hours southeast of Otter Tail County right now, where we live. As soon as I get about 20 miles onto I-94 heading west, I just feel it, like just a calming sensation that comes over me.
I'm going to say something that's going to sound kind of odd. And some of the people who may have been more city folk may understand this. I grew up in a very tough neighborhood, right? When I was a kid, I grew up in the South Bronx in the 70s. Not a good neighborhood. People know that it wasn't. Because of that, when I go back to bad neighborhoods, I don't feel afraid. And I know it's weird because, like, there are some bad neighborhoods in cities. We know this, right? They exist. And it's dangerous. But I don't feel any fear. And it's because I think I grew up there as a kid. And it was where I grew up. And I would actually turn out to the opposite side. Because when you go out in the woods, a lot of city folk are afraid. But the country folk don't care. Like, no, it's the woods. I'm out here all the time. I'm not worried. But then the city guy goes, is a wolf going to eat me? Right? We don't know, right? We're worried. So it's very funny that with what you grew up with is what you know. And to someone else, it feels dangerous or wrong or weird. But to you, it's completely okay.
Is it Christopher and who in The Sopranos when they're stuck in the Pine Barrens?
Right. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Exactly. Wow, Sopranos reference. Nicely done. Absolutely. Yes.
So, but that's an interesting point, though. And I would take it just one step further, too, is that, and it's not just, you know, the city or the country, but people just in general, we fear what we don't know. Right? Like we just have this internal fear of, I don't understand that. And it's a little bit scary. And I think that's just kind of human.
100%. Brian says, farmers around here resisted self-driving tech until it was proven that by limiting human drift while planting the fields, it increased yields by 15 to 20%. I had no idea. There we go. Thank you for that, Brian. But I guess, yeah, at one point, you kind of want to make some cash, right? You're an entrepreneur. You got to make some money. So Sarah says, hello from, I'll say it right, Owatonna, Minnesota.
Owatonna, Minnesota. That's, home of Owl City as well.
There we go.
The artist.
There we go. So, yes. And the outdoor report says, amen, Cory. So there we go. There we go. And Sam says, I love living my rural life. Sam's an upstate New Yorker. Absolutely. There we go. I do like that. So Joseph says, you make a very good point about living in the present and how important that is versus being in the past or in the future all the time. And this is, and it's funny that, you know, he says this because when people live in the past all the time, they tend to get depressed.
Yeah.
And when you live in the future all the time, you don't get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. Past, you're depressed because you're selective. You select. You're selective about all the, and you don't remember the day-to-day stuff, but you're selective about the good things. And then, so you're depressed about the past, but you worry about the future. I mean, I can't tell you. And look, I'm guilty of it too. Like I don't have it all figured out. But we worry about things that will never happen.
Yes.
We worry about things that will never, and then we won't sleep. We'll wake up, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, that never. So that, and that's the overall theme here is that, look, I sit out in an episode that'll come out, I think in December, around December 18-ish, with a guy, his name's Adon, and his family immigrated from Mexico to Pelican Rapids, Minnesota. And
that's the place. I remember. That's right. Yes. Okay.
Yep. And his dad taught him fishing, and that was their thing. And he talks about how he would have gotten in trouble. He said, I know I would have gotten in trouble if it were not for fishing. This really helped save my life. And it is his thing. He shares it with his kids now, and his father's in his 80s, and he takes his dad fishing now.
Great.
But he talks about how ice fishing is his spiritual thing. Like, yeah, it's not his God, but it's his thing.
Sure.
He's able to just be present, be in the moment, be thankful for the things that he has. And I just thought it was so powerful. He was just, it was one of those shoots that we went to. I didn't have any idea I just knew we were going ice fishing. That's it. And that is just what came out of his heart. And I'm just really.
Was that the kid, if I remember the story, that when he got off the bus, it was like the snow was higher than him? Was that the kid?
Yeah. That's different. That's a different person. So this
different. Okay, different. Okay, I mixed them up in my head. Okay,
yeah. Same area, but yeah.
There we go. Okay, I remember the name of the town. I do remember that. So yeah. A question for you. Kevin asked, Cory, will you run for governor in 2026? So you got the question already. It's been like 2 weeks. And you got the question already.
I appreciate it, Kevin. I've made the decision that I will not be running for governor in 2026. I just think that the moment for me was this year. Just considering the two-party dynamics, considering the frustration, considering everything that I heard from people, rural, urban, all over Minnesota, I felt like this was the opportunity right now. And then personally too, if I want to bring that into personally, my kids were at a certain age where I felt like it could be done and I could balance it. But it's a lot of, as you know, Larry, it's a lot. And especially as a third party, it's incredibly difficult when you're going up against two big money machines. It's a big, big lift. And we wanted to do it the right way, but I've talked to my senior advisors and we had talked about, well, do we build out a 4-year plan and give it a go again in 2026? And I've made the decision that I will not do that.
Well, there we go. He actually answered the question. What kind of politician are you? Clearly a failed one. You answered the question. That was a bad thing. So yes, that's good. Sarah asked a specific question again. She says, Cory, curious if you've ever spoke with Travis Bull Johnson. He ran for Congress around your area. Do you happen to know him?
I don't know him personally. I know the name though.
There we go.
I'll have to get in touch with him, Sarah. That's I do know Travis, at least by name. So I'll have to get in touch.
There we go. Sam brings up my point, and this is again from upstate. He says, lots of concern about areas going woke as people buy up cheap places in rural areas and improve it. And I do think that, particularly in New York State, the word woke is used to mean, like you said, elitist. Like that's what it means, right? And I think a lot of rural people think, oh, I don't want these people to come because then they're going to make everything like the city, right? They're all going to do that. I feel that is a concern in certain areas. Obviously in New York it is. But you're saying it isn't that big of a deal where you are.
I haven't heard it. That's not to say it doesn't exist. And maybe there are some concerns about that. But I don't see that. I think that from my perspective and what I've heard from people in the county are that, hey, look, like we need people and all are welcome here. But I can't speak for everybody. But yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Dave says, I spent way too much money on everyone's campaigns, including my own. I like that, Dave. I agree with you. My worst part, for those who don't know, is when I run for office, I can't work.
Yeah.
It absorbs everything. So I go a year without a salary. So while I'm not spending as much money, I'm going into debt over the course of the year because now all of my bills are now paid by either savings and or credit. So all of a sudden now I'm in debt for a year. So I have to go back to work to pay off my debt now.
Yeah.
So yes,
We're in a
that's how
similar
mine
spot,
does.
Larry. I mean, my wife and I, this was not a, hey, let's do this. Like we planned out for 3 years.
Yes.
Not only the strategic plan and the theme and the branding and all that, like it started here in the basement, and it just kept gathering steam. And but it was also, this was not something I did alone. Like
Sure.
my wife and I budgeted and said, this will be a year without an income. And
Yep.
it was a major leap, but I also knew that I don't want to be 90 and sitting back and going, I had a shot, I had a voice.
Bingo.
And I know that people were responding. The data supports it. People were into it. It's just, there are so many barriers right now for a third party.
Yes.
I could not live with myself if I didn't stand up and be that voice. This was not me. This was a voice for the people. And unfortunately, we didn't get it done yet, but we know that we can serve in other ways.
But, I this is the part that I think is a total overlap. If you look at, I'm sure similar in Minnesota, but in New York State for sure, people, we have Democrats, Republicans who literally attack each other. And I mean, even the people, like, I don't mean a Democratic leader calls a Republican leader a name. I mean, Republican leaders call the average Democrat a name. The Democrat leader calls the average Republican a name. And people say, how can they do that? And I would say in New York State, all you care about is getting your base out. You're not trying to convert someone over to your side. You just want your basic amount. Our governors, we're obviously a very deep blue state. So our governors are Democratic, and they will often go, oh, you conservatives, get out of the state. Literally, leave the state. We don't care. Like that much. Yep. Third parties are the only parties that try to unite.
Yep.
We're the only ones who do. We're the only ones who actually care about both the rural and the suburban and the urban, because we have to convert. We have to unite. The two major parties don't have to.
Well, and as you know, like we branded with the color purple. Minnesota is the purple state. We have Prince, we have the Vikings, and then purple, and purple being the combination of blue and red. So I wore purple. But what I found is in our state, it's different dynamics because we have had a third party candidate win.
I know.
Highest level. Now it took
Jesse Ventura.
It took a storm, an incredible storm, and somebody incredibly famous. But the data still says we like that third party. We like it. And because the red's not quite as red, the blue's not quite as blue, and we have an educated state. People are educated here, and they're interested in the people who serve this state. And so they take an active role. But to your point, what's happened then here in Minnesota is at the convention, the Republican convention, they go out and support somebody who was way right, in bed with Trump and an election denier. And that, I felt, opened up the door more for a third party.
Sure.
Because, and as it turned out, it really did. Because people were...
And Minnesota's not a deep red state. It's more bluish. It is a blue tint, isn't it?
It's an interesting dynamic because, yes, we've had consecutive governors who have been Democratic, but in the early 2000s or early and mid 2000s, we had a Republican governor, Tim Pawlenty, who was actually talked about as a VP candidate, so it was very popular.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Okay,
but we voted at the national level for president. We've gone blue every single time since like 68, since Nixon. But we've had governor as a Democrat, but we've had split legislature. The last 4 to 6, 8 years, something like that, where the Senate's been Republican and the House has been Democrat, and now the Democrats just won that. So they've got all control now.
Got it. And that's the thing that drives me crazy. People often say, in my state, New York, because it's a one-party state, well, it's because the Democrats are so corrupt. And I say, why don't you ask Oklahoma how the Republicans are? it isn't the fact that the Democrats, it's the fact that it's one party rule. So in Oklahoma, it's Republican one party rule, and they're corrupt. In New York State, it's Democrat party rule, and they're corrupt. They're corrupt because there's no competition. Because no one's pushing them. It doesn't matter that they're Democrats, Republicans. It matters that there's no competition. And sadly, in my state, we've come to a point where it's a cartel system, to where the Republicans say, we're just going to run here. You don't bother us. You'll stay in charge, but don't run anybody. And we won't run anybody over there. In my local area here, people don't know this, but AOC is my congressperson. That's where I live, right? So it's a very blue area where I live. For my state assembly, the Republicans haven't even bothered to run a candidate in 10 years. So he runs unopposed. They don't even bother. It's a cartel system. And there are areas of the city. Staten Island basically is the only kind of red area of New York City. The Republicans run, and the Democrats, just go, all right, I guess we'll put somebody up, I guess. Here's $4. Good luck. That's kind of how they do it there. So a lot of the elections in my state and in my city, they're really unopposed. And it's a cartel system, which is one of the reasons why I push the idea of a third party. It's the only way to break the cartel system.
It's this failed partisanship, this abusive partisanship, really.
Yes.
That people at home can't stand. They're tired of it. They're exhausted by it. They go, you're leaving all of us behind. Like, there is no progress being done because of this abuse of partisanship. And so what I wanted to do, and this is why I love you, Larry, because what I built this whole campaign on was, look, the old way of politics that we've now assumed, that it doesn't matter, we're hardline, we're voting only for party, that has to stop. So what we're building is, we had people, different perspectives, who lean left, who lean right. We had different people from different backgrounds and different ethnicities. And that's where our team came from, right? And what we wanted to do and what we were doing was, we were that voice, and we were building our campaign based on data and trends and what we were hearing, and not based on the talking points that were handed down to me from a party. And so people got frustrated with, well, this is, just tell us everything that you want. Well, look, this is not your old way of politics. This is taking basically a leadership model that is effective in every other forward-thinking organization, whether it's sports or business or doesn't matter. And we're taking it to the place that needs it the most in politics. But as you know, it's so difficult.
Absolutely. Well, hold on. Otter Tail Lakes County does say something which is interesting. A couple quotes. It's better to regret things you did than the things you didn't do. Red Hot Chili Peppers. So there we go. The awesome philosophers, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I love it. So yes, that's good.
Are you going to run again, right? Have you announced that? Are you going to run again?
I don't know, to be forward with you. I ran twice, right? The first time I did very well. The second time I got hammered by Republicans. They literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars throwing me off the ballot, suing me in civil court so that I couldn't get on the ballot. So I had to run a write-in campaign, which was just to try to get ballot access for next year, which sadly I failed even in that. So this was a much worse year than I did last time. And I raised lots of money. I raised $500,000 last time. For a third party, that's a lot of money, right?
A lot.
This time I raised almost as much, but almost all of it went into trying to get on the ballot. So I couldn't spend any money on the actual campaign. It was all spent on trying to get on the ballot, which I lost in court. So it was very disappointing this time. However, the fact that they spent so much time, energy, and money against me shows that I'm winning.
Yeah.
That I'm making impact. So I think that's a good thing. It really spent a lot. I spent a lot of time, money, and energy. But I know that, look, I got probably about 20,000 people to write me in. That's 20,000 people who got up that day, walked down to a place or rode down there and wrote my name in. That's a big deal, right? A lot of people couldn't get that.
Wrote your name in.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, when they're spending that kind of money, and we felt it too, you're a threat, right? You're a threat. And that's what bothers me is the, look, I think people deserve to have a voice, and people deserve to go to the ballot box with pride. Not, I'm going to vote for this person because I dislike that person more. No, it should be, this person is rallying, they're exciting, they're coming up with innovative ideas. They may not have it all perfect or laid out, perfectly or have every single answer, but they're honest and they're here to serve people. That's and unfortunately, that's right now. It's
there we go. Dave brings up, in Iowa, 40 out of 100 state house races were either unopposed or against third-party independent candidates. 11 out of 34 state Senate races were unopposed or against third-party independent candidates. This is a common problem. This is what we're talking about, Dave. This system is absolutely broken. And to make clear, guys, if you want to know what Cory's doing, head on over to his website, CoryHepola.com. Follow him on Twitter. You head over there, check things out to see what he's getting, and follow him. He's doing stuff. He's posting stuff. So follow him, and it's good. And watch Rural by Choice. It's good. I watched the whole thing. I haven't started season 2 yet, to be forward. I only watched season 1. I know season 2 just came out. I have not watched it yet. So I'll probably wait to binge it, to be forward. I probably will. But anyway, but I will watch it. I will watch, but I'll probably wait till all about and I'll binge it.
But I do want people to know too, it's easily consumable because the first episode of season 2 is out. Then there'll be 4 more, but they're all within the 8 to 15 minute range. So
yes,
they're easily consumable.
100%. So please check it out. If you want to support me directly, patreon.com/Sharpway. If you say, Larry, I don't have any cash, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, comment, share. It's free. Do that. Helps me out no matter what. And of course, my sponsors, they want you to be taking the world's smallest political quiz. That's why I bug you every single time. I want you to do it, take it, share it, so that we can have good conversations and change the way people think. So let me ask you, Cory, before we wrap this up, is there something that you would like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
I don't think so. I think that, one of the points that, we did this documentary and docuseries to help break down those popular misconceptions. I mean, that's really the crux of all of this. And I know I am very clear on my own personal mission and core values in life. And I was talking about it earlier. It shifted from success being the driver to significance and to helping others. And that's what leads me. And I know my particular path, sometimes people can't understand it. Like, why would you quit a job? And then why would you take this risk? Or why would you do that? But it's all for this larger purpose. And I think that what this docuseries does, it hits that. Like, people are able to consume this and they're able to reflect on their own lives. And I think that's why people, whether they're in New York or they're in Washington or Texas or in Minnesota here, they respond to, because everybody can respond to that theme of, am I happy now? Am I present now? Am I doing the right things now? Or is there some place I haven't explored that may be more fulfilling for my life? And everybody can do that, whether they're, 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or above, and they can do that. And I think that's why people are responding that, because they've all asked themselves that question or are currently doing that, like myself.
Well, you ended one of your episodes. I forgot which one with, it's never too late.
Yeah.
So I agree completely. But there's the best part. Let's say I think, and I do this often when I'm dealing with executives. I do a lot of executive training and coaching here or there. And I'll say things like, let's walk down this road. Let's go do this thing. Let's go do the thing, right? And there are many executives, to your point, who are making lots of money, but are very unhappy. So I say, what do you want to do? Well, and I'll say things like, have you thought of buying a franchise? And I'll bring up stuff like that. Let's buy a franchise. What? You don't have to run the damn thing. You use your skill set to pick the right franchise. You hire somebody to run it. You just buy it. So you're using your skill set to figure out what to buy the thing, hire the people, and run it. And they go, but wow, but I'm a this and that. I know. Let's walk down the road. So we literally will go to franchise brokers, talk to people, and then what will wind up happening? They'll go, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go back to what I'm doing. And then realize they are happy and they're satisfied. And they go back with vigor. Or the reverse. They go, this really excited me. This may not be the right thing, but leaving excited me. I'm doing the wrong thing. I should leave. So walking down that road, to your point, being curious, as you've said a couple times today, and trying something new, it's a win no matter what. Either, okay, this is the place for me, awesome, or no, the other place was right for me. The grass wasn't greener. This is where I want to be. I think either way, it's a win.
That's a beautiful point. Couldn't agree more. I mean, a healthy dose of perspective is something we all need. Absolutely.
Well, Cory, I want to say thank you so much for giving me about an hour. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time. I appreciate that. Thank you for putting together that great docuseries. And everyone else, thank you so much for watching. You guys know I will be back on tomorrow at 3 p.m. and then again at 7. Yes, I'm punishing you, but make sure that you, to the best of your ability, watch. I will see you all